All right, Joshua, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
I'm doing excellent. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I think you might be my first guest from Australia, so I'm excited to have you on the show. And yeah, Joshua, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and your Yowie experiences from the very beginning.
Okay, cool. Well, the very beginning. Um, well, the very beginning would be I'll start at the first sighting, which is I was actually probably 2 years ago now. I was with my partner. We're just driving out to a campsite. I don't know why we decided to camp this day. It was pouring down rain. And so, but it's a free campsite, Kilcoy. It's called Little Yabba Creek. And on the way out there, I happened to catch out of the corner of my eye what I thought was a cow at the time. It was actually white, but it was, so I thought it was the back of a cow. It was huge. It was huge. And then it wasn't until we got a little bit past that I'd realised what it was, because it was not the back of a cow. Like, it had hair and it was shoulders. Like, they were probably about 4 feet wide, and it was just sort of cruising off the edge of the road into a ditch and went into some bush. And the way I sort of was visioning it was like the back of a cow. The cows got out of a paddock. There's plenty of cow paddocks along there, all that sort of stuff. But it was outside of the barbed wire, and it was not moving like a cow whatsoever. It was just walking along. Yeah. Yeah. And
Was the
then,
creature on all fours, or was it upright?
no, definitely not on all fours. It was walking on 2 feet. I could see that more clearly as I turned my head as we were going past. And that's when I said to my partner, I said, "Did you see that?" And she didn't see it. There was
Yeah.
nowhere to turn around or anything. This is a small dirt road, and I don't think I would have, to be honest. Anyway, yeah, it was a bit of a spin out, yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. You mentioned the location. Is this close to Queensland?
Oh, we are in Queensland, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that's where I've lived my whole life. Live in Caloundra, the Sunshine Coast. So yeah, at the moment I'm living North Brisbane area, but I grew up on the Sunshine Coast. I'm 44 years old, so I've been in it a long time.
Okay.
And
Very cool.
anyway, so do you want me to carry on with the
Yeah,
that
let's
night?
roll through all the experiences and kind of just guide me through them all and what you
Okay.
experienced.
So anyway, we got to the campsite that night, and it was evening, early evening, and we set up, and it was pouring rain. It's a free campsite. It's usually packed out. Like, usually you cannot get a spot, but because it was near flooding, basically, we were the only ones there. So we got a pick of the spot. So we decided to camp on the creek side, which we don't usually get to get a spot on, because, I mean, the other side of the road, it's just sort of a paddock, cow paddocks, and it does lead off into the bush, I think. I don't know. I haven't really traveled much past that area, but there's a lot of bush around the area and everything. So we set up that night, and my partner and I were just sort of, doing our thing, when my dog started freaking out. Actually, she started barking at something, and so we were playing cards. I think we'd set up a tarp and everything, so we were under there playing cards, and we're trying to figure out what she was barking at. And we were totally unprepared for this. So I had a headlamp torch, which didn't have much of a beam on it at all. And anyway, so we're looking in the direction where the dog was barking, and because you sort of just look across. But anyway, it happened. Then I happened to glance a bit higher, which would have probably been from where we were elevated, and then there was a drop. So this thing would have been about probably 10 foot where we were looking, where my eye line was headed, and there was these two red eyes. Yeah. And I showed my partner, and then she started getting freaked out. And I was saying, hey, look, it's probably just a possum in a tree, because they have red eye shine. But this was too far back. Like, we couldn't even get the torchlight to shine on it. And the eyes were way further apart. Like, yeah. And they were blinking too. So that was the other thing. And anyway, so we ended up, me trying not to freak her out. But she did. She freaked out. And I think, but we had no choice. We had to stay there. Because, I mean, we couldn't, by then it was dark, it was pouring rain, we had to camp there. Like, I wasn't taking all the tent down, getting unpacked, the whole rigmarole, getting the wet dog in the car and leaving at that time of night. So I got her calm enough. She went in the tent, went to sleep. I stayed awake because I was still freaked out, because I knew that was not a possum in a tree. And anyway, so we went on from there, and then my dog started acting weird again. And how when you lie in a tent and the zipper's sort of at your feet, so that's where the opening is, like our heads were back, and the dog was at our feet because she was in the tent because it was raining, obviously. So and she was looking out. And I got up to see what she was looking at. And I honestly, I couldn't see anything at first. And I noticed she was looking up. And I looked up. And there's this thing that we have in Australia. We call them min lights. Basically, you call them orbs over there. But there was this white light. And it was just sort of hovering around, just above our tent, just on the outside of our tent. And I watched this for a while, and after a while it just sort of, flitted off. And that was it for that night, apart from when we went to pack up the next day. So this is when my partner found out that there was no way that was a possum in a tree, because where we were looking at this thing, there was no trees. It was just bare area. So the thing would have had to have been, I've heard on other podcasts that supposedly Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, I think, he seems to think that the Australian Yowies are generally bigger than your Sasquatch over there. So I think this thing was probably about, I don't want to exaggerate like crazy, but I was already guessing it would have been about 10 feet high, but then there was actually a ditch. So I think these eyes would have been at about 12 feet.
You hear that? You hear that? They sound like wood knocks, eh?
Another one. Where's the hole? Oh, there.
You hear that? You hear that?
And my partner said, "There's no way that was like a possum in a tree." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I knew that last night. I didn't want to freak you out, you know."
Yeah, that's pretty freaky. So,
yeah.
was the headlamp shining on this creature? Do you think that's what caused the eyes to shine red, or were they self-illuminated?
No, they were. It was like it was eye glow, yeah, it was like, what do you call it? Like self-illuminating.
Mm, yeah. And the orb, do you feel like that was connected to the Yowie?
See, I don't know. It's weird to have the two things happen together, I guess. But Min Min lights, like, kind of, they're pretty well known in Australia, actually. Like, they can follow cars. They're known to follow cars down the highway, to harass campers, to sort of just be around in the paddocks. Like, farmers from, I don't even know if the Min Min light, like Min Min, if the word is actually Indigenous Australian. So, you know, it might be really old. I don't know if they're connected, but it is weird that it both happened in one night, for sure, for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely. I would say
I
there's
don't
a
want to
connection
jump
there.
and make the connection. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm sorry. Yeah, but we also realised the next day, because it was really long grass behind where we camped as well, and you could see like a track mark that came all the way up, and then a flattened down area directly behind our tent where we'd slept that night. And there was no one there that night. 100% no one there. We would have seen the headlights come in, like, you know, like, we would have seen lights. We would have been aware if there was someone else there that night. So it's pretty eerie to think. I'm pretty sure this thing decided to take an interest in us, walk up and sort of, you know, squat there and sort of just check on what we're doing.
Yeah. About how big was the bed that you found? Was it like 4 feet, 8 feet across?
It was just a small area, probably about a 4-foot circle of push down long grass. Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay.
the trackway came directly from where we could see this thing standing. Well, we couldn't actually see it because the torch wouldn't light it up, but we could see the eyes. There's just no mistaking the eyes.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I don't blame you for telling her that it's probably a possum. And I've been through
Yeah,
the same scenario myself. It's like, let's go to bed, and I don't think anything bad's gonna happen. But in your
yeah.
mind, you're like, oh man.
That's the funny thing, because she slept like a log and I was up thinking, what the hell was that? You
Yeah.
know? Which
Yeah,
is
that's pretty
probably
bad.
why I saw the Min Min light too.
Yeah. I've been through it, and it's like you got to calm someone down. You're like, no, we're completely fine, but in reality, you're like,
Yeah, for sure.
you're probably freaking out more than she is inside, but trying not to show it.
Big time. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what else happened after this? What else have you guys experienced?
Okay, well, I can sort of go back after that because that's when I started really getting interested in the topic. That's when I started diving into things. You know, that one thing can send you down the rabbit hole, and that's where I went. So I just, for the life of me, wanted to figure this thing out. I thought I actually wanted to see one, like have you know, but ended up I didn't. So I started trying to find areas where I thought they might be and just, doing the whole thing, the Yowie research and watching all the YouTube channels and contacting groups and but the thing is, I think once you've seen one of these things, I actually got this from Scott Carpenter. Once they know that you know about them, I'm pretty sure they become more bold. I don't know how. I think that's a preternatural thing about them. And that's sort of what led me to my ultimate decision on what I thought they were. We'll get to that later. But, so I found a good area near my place and started going out there fairly regularly. We'd find things like the general things like structures and breaks and everything you could think of. I sent you the video of the wood knocks. That's when we started getting things like that happen a lot. It wasn't like that wasn't like a one-off thing. That was sort of like a regular occurrence. Like we'd go out there and we'd hear the wood knocks, and it wasn't till probably maybe a month after that, going out, experience a few things, and that we'd actually walked in there, my partner and I, and I just had this feeling in my gut, like, I don't want to go up this track. It was just a primal fear, really. It just hit me. And the next thing, we just heard the most almighty footsteps come flying past us, like close enough that I actually felt wind off this thing, but we could see nothing. And it was in a pretty open area of bush, so that we could see nothing. It was just the footsteps. And so we, of course, went running out because we weren't far in. We'd sort of just decided to go for a stroll in when this happened. And I got this feeling. My partner said she didn't feel anything, like she didn't get that feeling of dread or whatever. But after these footsteps came stomping past us and we couldn't see anything, then she freaked out too. And we ran out to where the track sort of goes in, where you have public access to it. Not a lot of people go to this area either, which I was calling my research area at the time, but not anymore for reasons, I'll go into later. But so that was a pretty full-on experience, like having this real experience happen and seeing nothing. It was pretty mind-blowing. And that's the other thing, when we got out there was actually got out of the track and got onto the main access way in there, because there was actually a power line where power lines went down. So there was sort of a grass cut area. And the kangaroos had actually been chased out there that had been freaked out too. So then we had an angry big red male, angry kangaroo wanting to get past us to where the car was. So we're backing up from the kangaroo because I'm saying to my partner, don't run. Like it, it's just going to arc it up sort of thing. But yeah, we got out of there all right and nothing else happened. But yeah, that was the freakiest thing that has ever happened to me, basically. And she would agree too. Yeah.
How far away was the footsteps or the stomping?
It was close. Like I would have said probably within a couple of feet of where we were. It sort of started in front of us, but came past us. Yeah.
That's pretty freaky. I've seen videos on YouTube. I don't know how real they are, but people would find like kangaroos with their heads ripped off. And it's kind of similar to what we have going on here in the States where people find deer with their heads ripped off.
Yeah, well, that's not uncommon. My partner actually, she was really good at spot. She is really good at spotting things. When we'd go out there, we found a possum that had been twisted, like so. It was just the skeletal remains, but the whole thing had been twisted. Like you'd need hands to twist this the way it was twisted. I mean, we don't have any predators here. I mean, there's no dingoes or wild dogs in that area as far as I know. So, I mean, yeah, twisted. You could see the whole spinal column was just, and it was pulled in half. So I don't know what they do, twist it, pull them in half and eat what's inside of them, or who knows. But we found a few of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy. And I remember seeing the video that you sent the other day where you and your partner were walking into the forest and you can clearly hear wood knocks.
Yeah, that's the place where this happened to us. Yeah. That was, yeah, so like, I ended up joining, well, not really joining a group, but linking up with a guy who sort of went out at night and stuff. I'd never been into that area at night before, but so we decided to go there at night, and that was just through talking to a bloke. He's actually quite well known here, Gary Lynn. He used to work with I can't remember the name of the outfit, but he's actually one of the guys that was in the group that caught that thermal of the two Yowies, because I was chatting with him online and he linked me up with this guy. And yeah, so we decided to go out there at night. And that was pretty freaky too, because as soon as we got there, it was dead silent. It was like dead silent. Like the Australian bush, we got cicadas, crickets, everything. But this place, as soon as we turned up, boom. It was just like there was no sound at all. And that is so strange for the bush. And anyway, as soon as we started walking in, bipedal footsteps beside us sort of followed us in to that area. And, we walked around a bit. Not a lot happened that night, but that we did get followed in to the area. Yeah, I can confirm that.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times myself. And I think I've seen the group that you're talking about. They got a YouTube channel and you can see like these two creatures hiding behind a stump and they're like duck.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good thermal. I think that's some of the best I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as thermal footage go, I think it is the best that I have seen. But he's quite open, like easygoing bloke, like I've just messaged him. I messaged him the wood knocks, like sent him the video of the wood knocks, and he's like, yeah, they're definitely wood knocks. And so, I mean, I've had other encounters too, if you want me to go into them. Well, not
Yeah,
actual
absolutely.
encounters, but other happenings and that. Yeah. So I found out, because you don't really go around advertising, like I'm into Yowies, because especially in Australia, like people really like to, give it to you here if you're a bit, if you're a bit out there, like we really like to lay it on thick if we think someone's pulling the piss basically.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I actually found a good mate who had just become interested in the topic. So we looked up a good area where there'd actually been sightings and everything. And this is on the Sunshine Coast. Yandina, it's a place called Wappadam. So we sort of went up into the bush up behind that area and found this really beautiful campsite there. And we had stuff happen that night too. Like, we were just chilling. We set up our camp, checked out the place. It was a really lovely gorge with spring-fed sort of almost a mini waterfall, and that you could drink. Like, it was pure clean. Like, the water had been filtered through all the leaves and all that sort of stuff and down through, and where the spring came out, it was crystal clear. It was better than any bottled water you could ever taste. It was just, yeah, the place was awesome, and we knew it was like maybe an active area. And that night, not a lot happened, but we heard like the chatter that night. Me and my mate, we were actually listening to music when it first started happening.
What did it sound like?
It's hard to put a finger on, hey, like I don't really want to try and mimic it myself, but basically we thought it was someone speaking in another language. Like, you could tell they were trying to be quiet because we could hear it when we'd either play music or when we were talking. And then as soon as we stopped and started listening, it had cut off. I thought it was like someone speaking in another language.
Was it more
Yeah.
like Japanese or like French?
More like, I don't know, like that real, like Afghani or something like that.
Okay.
That sort of sound with really, yeah, that was the sound that we had coming out of that place. And
So very foreign.
very, very foreign. Like,
Yeah.
it was baffling. The next day when we headed out of there, actually that night we had the rock clacking noises as well going on. But that was once we decided to put the fire out and go to bed. Straight away the rock clacking started, and we were talking to each other like in our tents, saying like, that's weird, like we just hopped into our tents and that's when it started. So they were definitely sort of communicating around us.
Yeah. So you
But
think they were like talking to each other? You guys were in the tent and
yeah,
time to come out
yeah,
and
I'm
play.
pretty sure they were like sort of communicating around us. You could hear stuff moving around that was too big to be any local fauna, but you couldn't see it. Same thing when you'd shine your light into the bush and that, you couldn't see it. So it was, yeah, I definitely would attribute it to Yowie sort of stuff. Yeah.
Is this still the same area or general area where you had your
No, this
experiences
is a
at?
different area where we decided to go this time. He didn't
Okay.
want to go to my area. I don't know why. I probably wouldn't want to camp out there myself, to be honest, at night. Yeah, I wouldn't go out there by myself at night, even with a mate. I don't think I'd want to camp out in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of Scott Carpenter, at this point, do you feel like these creatures are following you around, or it's just a coincidence that you're having more Yowie experiences? Or, I mean, you are going to areas where they've been known to be at. So what are your thoughts?
Well, that's it. I started putting myself in areas where they'd be and hoping for interactions and getting them quite consistently. It wasn't every time, but it was consistent enough to sort of be forming a pattern. And the reason I latched onto the Scott Carpenter thing is because we actually started having stuff happen around our house. Like, do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah, well, it was basically just your poltergeist type activity. You know, the very first time it started, like the side of our house has gravel rocks, so you'd hear anyone walking on it and stuff like that. But 3 clear knocks on the window right beside my head when I was at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was 3 loud knocks, enough to wake me up. I mean, I got up and had a look, like went outside and had a look down the side. I knew there'd be nothing there because we would have heard the gate open. There's gravel down the side, so we would have heard footsteps on the gravel, but there was nothing. And I mean, this wasn't, I was dreaming this and woke up. These knocks were loud enough to wake me up. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. Do you live in town or do you live outside?
We live in town.
Yeah, that's creepy. I had that happening at a place that I used to live at that I would consider that was haunted, or I don't know, there was stuff going on there, but something excuse me, something would knock on the window, or like sometimes it sounded like nails clicking on the window, like click 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 click, like you could tell like it was I don't know, something evil.
Yep. Had that since then as well. So had tapping on the windows as well, and my partner's actually experienced a really like big whack on one of the windows. And we even had things inside the house start happening. Like I'm actually got a really bad back injury at the moment, so I haven't been into this stuff for a long time. This is all this stuff that started happening around the house is the reason I decided to just stop looking into this subject, because I feel that, well, none of this happened before, and now this is coming into the house, so it must be linked. And I, like looking for answers, the most ancient book that you can sort of go for answers, because I had strayed from my faith, but I thought, like I'm going to, this happening around the house sort of really brought me back to my faith and back to praying and all that. So I looked in the Bible, and it sort of lined up with Scott Carpenter's theories about them being the Nephilim. But I think they may be, like Nephilim offspring or something like that. It's just a theory. Like, I'm not saying this is what they are. This is my theory. And I know since then that leaving it alone completely and praying over it, everything stopped around the house. Oh, we had stuff like pictures being knocked off the wall, all sorts of things. My partner would feel someone push down on the bed at night when I wasn't in bed yet, and she'd be waiting for me to hop in bed, and I wasn't there. Yeah, and my son, I've got a 2-year-old son. He started getting freaked out, saying he could see a man in his room. He was scared of a man, and he'd never been scared before. He'd never had any problems sleeping, nothing. And then all of a sudden, I know children have imaginations and they can sort of, but this was screaming, like a primal scream that came out of my son. Like he was scared. And it took a long time to settle him down too. So, I mean, I've done the whole thing around the house, holy water. I've got, I went to the priest and he gave me like blessed oil to bury in the garden outside. And I went around and and he blessed the house, he didn't actually come to the house, but he just blessed it from where he was and gave me holy water to bring home, so I sprinkled it in my son's room, and it hasn't happened since, and everything's quietened down. I've found the further I'm getting back into my faith, the less things are happening.
Well, that's good. Definitely don't lose your faith, and
No.
keep praying, man, because you never know.
Yeah.
There could be a connection. A lot of researchers say there's not, but I've experienced it all, and I feel like there is some sort of connection, especially like with the whatever you want to call it, the supernatural that correlates with the Sasquatch, the Yowie, as far as like the orbs and the invisibility, like how they can get so close to you, and there's
Yeah.
nothing there. And
Yeah.
a lot of people claim they've followed tracks that just like disappear and experience strange things like mind speak. And I don't know, it's really hard to say, but I feel like there is a connection with the Yowie, the Sasquatch, and like the Nephilim and the giants. Like you said, they could be some type of offspring. There was a lot more going on in those days that we don't know about. And it says in the book that they were there in that time and they would be
And
here. And yeah, after. So, and
yeah.
that's what we're seeing, and it also said that the giants had supernatural abilities. And it's strange that we see the Yowie creatures or the Sasquatch and they have supernatural abilities and they seem to
Yeah.
remain hidden. So, I mean, is that an answer? No, but what other answer do we have? What else do we have to fall back on? Why are they keeping it a secret? And there has to be some connection there. It doesn't give us all the answers, but it is a clue. And I don't think the Bible gives us the answers to everything. And you kind of have to have
No.
faith.
Yeah, I agree with you totally there. Like, yeah, that's a really good outlook to have. Like, and I just agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, like, you've got to find, to me, when I was looking into the subject, I had to find an answer. And I'm looking at all these other avenues, and it wasn't until I came to my faith, like, I think these things are actually, I don't think they're harmless. I think they are, like, a lot of the experiences in Australia are bad experiences, and a lot of people experience PTSD after them. And I mean, people say there's good ones and bad ones. Yeah, maybe, show me a good one. I mean, people do all this gifting and all of that, but people don't know what that means. No one has an idea. Like, oh yeah, they left me a pebble here. Yeah, but what does that mean? That's not good.
Yeah.
It may not be inherently bad, that thing, or it may be. It may, if you go take that home, who's not to say that's somewhat a cursed object, or, I just
Yeah,
would
that's a good point.
rather, yeah.
It could be seen like as an act of kindness, or they could be testing you. Like, do they know we're here? Are they going to notice a subtle difference? Like they're testing you. how
Yeah.
sharp are these people?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, no one knows. And all these people studying it, you know, going out there chasing it. And I mean, I didn't really even have to chase that much to have these things start happening. And I correlate it all together. Like, you know, since I've stopped going out seeking these things, everything stopped around the home. Like, I had things being moved, my rosary beads that I always keep beside the bed like, I always keep them there, you know. My son, he's not allowed in our room. He does not go in our room, and I drive because of my back. I like to drive because it takes my mind off the pain. So I'm never in the passenger seat when it's my partner and I. So I'm never in the passenger seat. And my rosary beads disappeared. I looked everywhere for them, under the bed, everywhere in my room. They turned up on the passenger side seat in the car. My partner found them. She's like, what? It even freaked her out. She was like, well, how did they get there?
Yeah, that is creepy.
Yeah.
The rosary is a very powerful prayer, and I attribute the success of my channel to the rosary. And it was a strange thing because I was praying for probably about 2 weeks straight, and I didn't have a job. My back was out, like I had
Yeah.
sciatica in my legs, and I prayed like, God, please give me a job that I can do that I enjoy. And I didn't know what that was going to be, so I had these Bigfoot encounters out here, and I was like, well, I need to put these out there. I guarantee you, if I had these experiences, somebody else has. So I told my encounters on YouTube, not thinking about a job, and all of a sudden, like the channel took off, and I was like, man, God does answer prayers. And also on my prayer altar, I got like my Bible, this cross, this wooden cross that has like Jesus on there. Um, it happened like 2 or 3 times. I'm pretty sure it happened 3 times. I would pray the rosary, I'd go eat breakfast or whatever, and I'd come back and that cross would be destroyed, like ripped into pieces and on the Bible. And I knew like something does not like me praying the rosary. Like I guess like the
Yeah.
devil felt defeated. Like I don't know. I don't know, but it happened. It freaks
Yeah.
me out thinking about it.
And see, you're going out still doing these. Look, like, I commend you for what you're doing because I understand that you want to bring awareness to this. I just want to sort of put out a warning for any of those that do want to go down that rabbit hole and do want to chase these things, that these things can start happening around you. I mean, it's not uncommon. It's not an uncommon thing to hear people having these extra things happening after an experience or after multiple experiences.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
try to get through people's heads like they think, dang it, it's a flesh and blood animal out there. But
yeah,
it's like, dude, a demon can appear as an animal, as a human being. An angel can appear as a person. Like you may have talked with an angel at some point in your life and you had no idea it was an angel. So just because something's flesh and blood doesn't mean that it's not supernatural or paranormal, because they can alter our reality, whether it's through material things, technology, electronics. They can manipulate it, and I don't think
yeah.
they can't really grasp that. And it is hard to grasp until you actually experience the paranormal for yourself, and it's very real.
You know, it's so funny, like you talking about that stuff. It pretty much mirrors what's been happening, what was happening here with me. You know, my cross, it kept like it. I have a wooden cross beside the bed, and it would like fall over in the middle of the night, and I'd have to go. I'd wake up, stand it back up, it'd fall over again. And this thing has a base on it, you know. It was
Yeah.
waking me up on the regular. And
Yeah.
that was when I just started praying the rosary. So I attribute, yeah, it's weird, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, the dark side will attack you when you're turning towards good, when you're praying to God. And I think it's like a sign that it's been defeated, or that you're trying to cast it out.
Yeah, well, it doesn't like when you fight back. And fighting with Jesus isn't fighting fair, because you're going to win, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, God's already won. So once you declare that Jesus is king, then these things retreat or they get really angry. And you just got to
Yeah,
keep pushing through. You can't think it's not working, like paranormal stuff's happening. Maybe it is working. And I think God uses evil to bring you towards the good, or let you have a bad experience to bring you closer to Him.
yeah. You know, I think these things were around me a lot more than I would have liked to have thought too. You know, like growing up on the Sunshine Coast, I was always one to be out chasing reptiles. Like I love catching lizards and snakes, and I was always in the bush. Like I'd find fishing spots, going out finding the freshwater places, as well, because we got the salt water there. So I'd want to go track in the bush and find a freshwater fishing spot with bass and yellow belly and that. And then when I'd be out there myself, a younger me, I'm talking like in my teens and 20s and that, and even before that, you'd be in a place and all of a sudden I'd have a feeling of dread come from nowhere, you know, and I'd want to be out of there. Where did that come from? I wasn't scared of being in the bush. I would have never gone in there if I was, you know what I mean? And it happened, when I look back, it happened like quite a few times. And these things are closer. I mean, that place that I sent you with, where you heard the wood knocks, you're free to share that video too if you like. But where you heard the wood knocks, I mean, that's right on the edge of housing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
It is a wildlife reserve, I think, but it's right on the edge of houses. For some reason, I think these things like being around where people are, which makes you question as well, like what really are their intentions if they like watching. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It seems like they're closer to civilization than people would like to believe. And
Yeah.
after you had these Yowie experiences, the paranormal activity take place at your house, did you think back on moments when you were younger of like strange things that happened and said, my God, that's probably what that was?
Yeah. That's what I was just talking about. Yeah. Because
Okay.
I mean, there was times when I remember one time clearly, my friend thinking I was throwing, because I mean, we were always mucking around and that, as you do with your mates. And we were at a good bass fishing spot, and he's yelling at me to stop throwing rocks at him, you know? And I'm like, I'm not throwing rocks at you, man. And we're yelling from a big distance, and he's through trees and bushes and all that. Like, there's no way I could have got a rock anywhere near him. And he's yelling at me to stop throwing rocks at him. And then I was getting rocks thrown at me, and I'm yelling at him to stop throwing rocks at me. And we both swore to it, like we weren't throwing rocks at each other. And isn't that like one of the things that they do?
Yeah, they rock throw, and that's creepy.
I've seen a lot of things. Like one time I was out fishing, and there was this green across the water from where I was. It was probably about had maybe 50 meters, this stretch of water. I don't know what that is in yards or feet or whatever. Probably, like, whatever it is. I saw like a green flash come out of the sky. It left a green trail behind it. It was like this, it was like a light. It almost looked like a fireball with a green trail behind it. And it came down through the trees, and I was waiting for like the bang, the impact. I thought like, oh, maybe it was a small meteorite or something, but then nothing happened. It was just this green flash. Yeah. And that was when I was fishing, when I was probably about 15 years old. And then,
Do you think it was the orbs? Like
I don't
lights?
think it was an orb. I don't know what that was. I can't explain that. Like, when you're out in the bush, the Australian bush, you see a lot of weird things. I mean, the Indigenous people here, I won't speak for them because I don't want to offend any, and I don't know all their customs, but like, I know there were certain areas that they just would not go. And then us white guys come in and just, we traipse all over the place because we don't believe in any of this stuff. Whereas they would not go there for a purpose.
Yeah, it's the same way around here. What did the Indigenous people or the Aboriginals like what do they say about the Yowie? Do they have their own
I
legend?
don't know what every sort of one says, but they say different things like, yeah, they are part spiritual being. Most of what I've heard from the Indigenous, they're part spiritual. And we also have other ones here too, little ones that they call brown jacks, or I can't remember the Indigenous word for them now. Yeah, I don't know. It might come to me, but I can't think of it right now. But the small ones, supposedly they're the ones like that will cause you trouble.
The little people?
Like, yeah, like, and they're tricksters, and they will stir trouble, and cause just cause a ruckus, or they can be harmful as well. Like, to be aware of them because they can cause you harm, and yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. Now, do you think personally, like when you hear of little people or the Yowie, do you think that it's flesh and blood, or do you think like that's a demon? Like
Yeah,
that's
demon.
what that is?
I think it's demonic. I just put it out there. I think it's all demonic. Yeah, because I mean, as soon as I took my faith back and actually, because I'd been away from it since I was young. Like, my mum had me in church, and as soon as I was old enough to say, no, I don't want to go to church anymore, that was it for me. And I've had a pretty wild time in between. But I think her giving me that base and having something to come back to, and me being able to go back to that, has helped me deal with all this, because without faith, I would have been lost. I mean, I think everyone in this world's searching for some sort of meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, even the hardest atheist is searching for meaning.
that's right. And they look for it in other areas, like, crystals, or star signs and things like that. I mean, we are a ritualistic type of people. Like, we just are that way. And my faith is what's got me out of so many things in my life.
Yeah, I agree. We're looking for answers in the same way we say, well, this is what the Bible says. This is what Scripture says. Like someone who's atheist says, well, this is what science says. This is what he said.
Yes.
So it's the same thing, essentially.
I mean, you can't fight science with religion, can you? It's just a not happening battle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
you've got,
especially if there is a God that created like the stars and mathematics and aligned everything perfectly. I mean, science is just discovering what God has already created. So yes, science is real, but so is God, in my opinion.
but there's things science can't explain yet. It's not they won't admit to it, but they don't want to hear about things that they can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Yowie or Sasquatch, or if they can't explain it, it doesn't come into their,
Mm-hmm.
their view of things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's like tailored around how is this going to make us money? Like if it is real,
Yeah,
how are we going to profit off of it?
yeah. And I mean, telling people, oh yeah, there's probably 10 to 13 foot giants walking around in the bush, and little people that could be harmful to you, and it's not going to be a good look for tourism.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like if you research it and you find less answers than when you first started. That's really demoralizing just because like you buy all this equipment, you spend a lot of time out there and it's like, what am I even looking for?
That's the thing I wanted to say to you. All these things would happen when I'd be out there with minimal equipment. Like, I see you constantly throwing more and more, like, oh, if I get this, or get more and more. But most of the experiences happen when you have nothing, or a phone, or just, like most of the time when I went camping, turn the phones off. And that's when things happen. It's not when you are recording. Like, you're very lucky if you do get something on a recording. Like, it's nigh on impossible to catch these things. It's the minimalist approach always worked with me. I'd think, look, I'd leave all my like technology, like really high tech stuff at home, and that's when the things would happen.
Yeah. It's almost like they're watching and they know what you're up to.
They do, I think. I mean, if they're demonic, they do. And you hear about the mind speak. I mean, demons have the ability to possess you if, like, you give them an opening, and they can put thoughts into your head and can put, like, if they're cast down angels, they have these abilities. We know from scripture that they can put voices into your head and all that sort of stuff. So to me, that explained all that mind speak and all that other stuff that comes with the subject, and the tracks disappearing and people not being able to get them on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, people could be experiencing that on a level each and every day, and maybe they just hear it as their own voice. It's like a voice that
Yeah,
says you're not good enough, you're never going to be able to do this, nobody likes you, you're never going to be anything. And if you believe it, maybe it'll become your reality. I
it's
think
it.
sometimes,
Spiritual warfare.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think like what people claim is mind speak, they start hearing like a voice that isn't theirs, and I think that's when okay, something's not right. That's not me. That's not my inner self.
That's not right. Like, that's, I'm out, you know?
Yeah,
If that
yeah,
happened to
absolutely.
me, I would have been out then.
Yeah, I've never heard a different voice in my head. Now I have. I mean, I don't know if it was in my head, but it sounded like it was right here, and a female said, "Miguel." And I turned around and said, "What?" Nobody was there.
Nobody there. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, see,
yeah.
I mean, the only thing that can explain that, the only book that isn't, fiction is the Bible. I know that's not fiction. I know that's a real book that was written with that things that really happen. And if you want to find crazy stuff, you can read that and find crazy stuff in there. Well, it may be crazy to people that don't believe in it, but for people that believe in it, it's not that crazy. So what's that crazy about Yowies and that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And we get into the cryptid subject because we want to believe that there's more out there that we don't know. And somehow it leads you back to the Bible that you dismissed and you got away from. Your parents raised you Christian and you got away from the church, you started partying, or maybe you just didn't believe it in
Yeah,
anymore. But somehow it leads you back to that foundation, the seeds that your parents planted years ago.
that's right. That's exactly, you put it in a nutshell. It. I did have a actual UFO encounter too, a couple of them, if you want to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear about it.
All right. Well, the first one was just with a group of mates. Like I was probably around 17, maybe. Yeah, no, it would have been probably about 16 actually. And we were just at a bus stop, like just on the side of the road, about to go to a party. And we just looked up, and this thing just streaked across the sky. Like, I mean, it was your everyday run of the mill UFO. We all saw it. We all looked at the same time, which was really weird because we were all, messing around and that. And we all just looked up and saw this thing. And then, yeah, the other one is actually a bit more full on and actually includes missing time too. I would have been 18 and I was with my girlfriend at the time. We'd driven into Brisbane to go to her dad was having a birthday party. That's right, yeah. And anyway, this is before GPS and all that stuff, so we didn't have any of that, and we couldn't find where the place was. So we gave up basically because there wasn't mobile phones or anything. Like we couldn't ring him and say, "Where are you? Give us directions." So we couldn't find the place. Drove home. It would have been, it was around dinner time, so that would have been around 7 o'clock. It takes an hour to get into Brisbane. Driving back down the Bruce Highway to Caloundra, my partner had fallen asleep. Not my partner, sorry, my girlfriend at the time had fallen asleep. And I could see in the rear vision mirror this really bright light starting to speed up. I thought it was a truck coming up behind. And anyway, it caught up in like no time. Next thing, it was just there. And then it actually came above the car and I could see it. So I could see underneath it and the whole car was like completely lit up. And that's the last thing I remember of it. I don't remember it going away. I don't remember it leaving. All of a sudden it wasn't there and I was driving again.
Yeah,
And she
that is
woke
creepy.
up. I remember her waking up saying, what just happened? That was the first word she said. She was like, what just happened?
What do
Yeah.
you think happened? Do you think something happened, like maybe you're abducted or?
I don't want to say that because I don't want to think that,
Right.
But
Yeah.
we lost time because we were at home in Caloundra at 3 a.m. We got back to her place. And there's no way 7 o'clock was dinner time in Brisbane, an hour's drive down the highway. We probably looked for the place for a couple of hours. So the latest would have been say 9 o'clock driving back. So then puts us at about, put a bit of traffic in there. 10:30 we should have been back in Caloundra, and it was 3 o'clock when we got back. 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah,
and
that is creepy.
Yeah, that's the end of that one. But yeah, like if you want to know what I saw underneath, like I could actually see panels. It reminded me of like an old warplane or something. You know how you actually see the rivets and stuff like that? That's how I saw underneath it. But it didn't, it was like a silver, but not a shiny silver, like a dull sort of, not matte either. Just, like I play guitar, so like when pickups get tarnished and they become sort of that brushed look and they're dull.
Like corroded.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not corroded, but just
okay, kind of
off.
like scraped. Or what do you mean, like when the pick hits like the pickups and like scratches it? Is that what you mean?
No, like after a long time, all that shine comes off and it becomes like a dull color.
Okay.
That's the best way I can think to explain it. Yeah, like maybe if you look up brushed nickel, you'll see what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think there's a connection with the Yowies and the UFOs?
Nah, I don't know. Maybe it could all just be demonic stuff to lead you somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
It's
mean,
hard to
everything
say.
leads you to. Sorry.
No, I was just saying it's kind of hard to say because a lot of places where people are claiming to see UFOs and aliens are like the same areas where people are seeing Sasquatch, but at the same time, these things could be living out there in the woods, but I feel like there could be a connection with it all. And I don't know. I don't think they're directly correlated, but possibly some way or another they are. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think directly either. Like, I can't see Yowie jumping out of a UFO or whatever. Like, but there could be some sort of. I mean, everything is happening on this sphere that we live in, isn't it? And it's all
Yeah,
supernatural. Yeah, so
it's all connected in some way or
yeah,
another. We're all on the same
everything's
plane of
connected.
existence.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
Now,
about
these
it.
okay, these structures that you said you found, what do they look like? Were they your like typical X, the TPs, arches?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also, we get these really. I'll send you a short video. These really fine little sticks pushed into the ground, but into ground that it shouldn't be able to go into. Like I found we'd find them pushed through leaves, so they've been pushed in, but that's also supposedly Yowie sign and into ground. And I'd take these things out and we'd been throwing sticks at the ground, trying to get them to stick in the same, but they don't. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't. That's another one here.
Do you
But
notice
yeah,
the
typical
sticks pointed?
X's.
Okay. Did you notice like the sticks that were poked in the ground, like around the campsite, like where you guys would have a tent at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how it was here. I set up a tent in the woods, and then I went back, and pretty much right where my tent was, there was a stick poked in the ground. And I
Well,
felt like
yeah,
they were letting me know, like they were watching me the whole time.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, when we went back, the second time we camped at that place where we heard the voices and the rock clacking and all that, there was it looked like a bedding area. It was all pushed down, and I didn't even take a photo of it. I don't know why. You know, a lot of these things you come across and you'd think, why didn't I take a photo of that, or why didn't I do? But, you know, I'm glad I'm away from all that now because everything's quiet at home. But yeah, a lot of the time I'd think, like, why didn't I take a photo of that, or why didn't I film that, or yeah. But there was like quite a clear bedding area right near where the campsite was.
Yeah, makes me feel like something like snuck in there and like was watching you guys.
Yeah, most probably could be. Yeah, because we could hear stuff walking around us at night. We just could not see it.
Yeah. And can you think of anything else that you've experienced?
I can think of other, like, I mean, I've had a life full of it. Not like to extreme extent, but yeah, like when I was this story is kind of hard for me to tell, but I'll tell it anyway because it just sort of, yeah, it is hard for me to tell, but I'll tell it. So when I was deep into my partying stage, well, I'd actually got into some pretty heavy drugs and that, and I was at rock bottom, like rock bottom, and I was almost half in and out of consciousness from the drugs I was using at the time, and so I couldn't tell if I'd gone to sleep and I dreamt this, or if I woke and this was really in front of me. But my grandfather, on my mum's dad, he passed away when he was younger, and I never met him, and he just appeared like a person in my bedroom, standing there, and he just said, "Mate, what are you doing?" As in, you know, what are you doing to yourself? And he also said, "You need to look after your mother." Yeah, and that was probably one of the most, that pulled me out of that anyway, put it that way. And when I told my mum, because I'd never physically seen him before, I'm seen a few photos around the place, but it was never like anything that I could recognize him by. And anyway, my mum asked me to explain his features, and I said, well, he was standing there and he had his hand in his pocket, and I said, explained how he was standing with his hand in his pocket, and he had like really deep creases in his brow and around his eyes, and there was a lot. Like, I mean, I could see everything. It was like a person was right there. And when I explained to my mum, she just broke down crying in tears because she just said, "That's him." And I said, "Yeah, his hand was in his pocket." And he was self-conscious because he'd lost some fingers. So, I mean, even just those little details just...
Yeah. And did this help pull you out of that situation that you were in, and do you feel closer to your family?
Yeah.
Okay.
It did. It took a little while, but it really deeply affected me. And it did, ultimately, that is the thing that pulled me out of it. I think God may have just, given him a pass to come back and give me a kick in the ass and say, hey, what are you doing, mate?
Yeah, it was like a divine message to wake you up.
It was, yeah. That's how I view it. And my mum was pretty blown away with the description and everything. And she said that's just exactly what he would say.
Yeah.
The words I told her, she just said that's just what he would say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing.
I appreciate you for sharing that with me, and I believe you.
Yeah. That's hard. That's probably the hardest one that I was sort of skirting around, I guess, sharing.
Yeah, I mean, as human beings, we often ask, like, where is God? I don't see God. I don't feel anything. I pray all the time, and I just don't feel any different. Like, nothing's happening. But when you have those experiences, you think, like, man, he's been here the whole time.
He is, yeah. Just needed a bit of a push to say, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the old place in Caloundra that I spent my childhood in, there was always weird things happening there. Like the stairs, there was it was a 2-story house. I'm from a big family, like one of 5 kids, and there'd be footsteps come racing up the stairs because my mum would always sit in the lounge room upstairs at night, and she'd hear footsteps come up, and then no one would appear, and yeah, just so I think that house was haunted too. She actually spoke one time to the previous owners, and they said, yeah, my sister saw what she calls an angel walking down the hall. But the previous owners said, well, my sister was really young at the time. The owners said that they thought it was a woman that was sort of, in this house that we lived in. So there's that, yeah. And
that's
then,
creepy. And somehow you started having activity where you're at now. This is the place, correct?
Where I'm at now, yeah. This is where I was having activity after looking into the Yowie subject and everything like that, which I'm glad that that's why I said originally when you said, would you do an interview? I was like, oh, no, I don't really want to. But I think it's in a good cause because it's sort of like a warning to people that do want to get into it. I mean, everyone has different views on it. This is my view on it, and this has fixed it for me. And I don't have that hunger to go out and chase it and, find meaning in other things like that because I found my faith again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. And I mean, the more I do it, the less I'm thinking, like, the less I believe it's an actual just flesh and blood unknown primate human species out in the forest. Like, there's definitely something strange going on, and I often question, like, what am I doing? Like, am I going to be judged for this one day? Like, Miguel, you spent your whole life misleading people and making them think that it was a primate, and you idolized this and didn't worship me. I worry about that. Like, what is God going to say whenever judgment comes for me?
Oh, I think you're right. I think you'll be okay, man. Like you said, you were praying at the time for something to be given to you, and this is what it's turned out to be. And you're sharing your message of what you think it is. And people do need to be aware that these things are out there. People are seeing them all the time, and not everyone comes forward. And how many thousands of reports are there? And how many thousands go unreported because people are scared to come out and speak their mind on it or say what they saw. And people are truly traumatized after these experiences too and don't know what to think. I mean, I'm glad I think I found my answer in what it is. And I think you're right, because you found you've sort of set your mind on what you think it is too.
Yeah,
And you were
absolutely. Like,
lost.
what's that?
I said you said you were lost with your back injury and sciatic pain and
Mm-hmm.
wondering what to do, and you prayed on it and you were given this. And I mean, I think what you're doing is brave, putting yourself out there, putting your face on camera and saying, this is what I think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the main goal, is that just help other people. And I mean, just because we think the it's tied in with the Nephilim, possibly demonic, that doesn't mean you're not going to find hairs, you're not going to find tracks, you're not going to find evidence. Like, you will find those things if you look for them, but there's something else going on. There's something deeper going
Yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like that day when I actually had that sighting before that incident, the very first incident that I told you about, the camping with the red eyes. I mean, I saw that thing. I saw it walking, and it was flesh and blood right there, walking off the side of the road. I could see shoulders, I could see hair, I could see muscle definition. Like, it was built and it was huge and it was walking.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think the creature was doing? What do you think it was up to?
Um, I think it may have just been, in maybe watching traffic come past and then got up. That is a really good question, actually. Like, why do these things choose the moment for you to drive past to cross? If they're so smart, so elusive, and they're so intelligent, why are they seen to road crossing all the time or beside the road? It's one of the most common reported traits with these creatures. I mean, couldn't they just hide for another 5 seconds and then cross the road after the car went past?
You would think so. I mean, they're so difficult to find, to get video footage of. And I mean, like we said earlier, like, science can't even figure it out, and here they are just
No.
walking in front of your car.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you can ask me what I think it was doing, but I have no idea. It was just walking off, and I saw it. And I shouldn't have, if they're that elusive and that good at hiding and all that stuff. Why would it be seen by a car that's making a lot of noise coming down a gravel road? Unless it wanted me to see it.
Yeah. I mean, I had an encounter like that where I wonder the same, because I pulled up to this dead end road, all like miles back there, and the road ends. And I get out of my car and then walk around my car, and I'm looking off this cliff, and I can see the entire forest, the river down below. I'm staying there for a few minutes, and I turn back around, and this creature on all fours like scurries into the woods right there off the parking lot. And it's just like, why did he wait till I was looking to like go and hide behind a tree? And that's what he did. He got on all fours, got up, and then hid behind a tree. And I thought it was a black bear at the time, but it's just like, he already heard me pull up. I opened up my door, got out, and I was standing there. Then he
Yeah.
waits to do that. It's like he could have did that once he heard me coming down the road, but it's like he wanted me to see that. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly what I'm getting at. I think they just want you to see them. Like,
Mhm.
why else would they just all of a sudden want to run in front of your car if they are so aware of their surroundings and are so elusive? And yeah, that's what's always baffled me. I'm like, what's with all these road sightings?
Yeah, that's actually what's reported the most, are road sightings where these things are crossing the roads, and I don't know, maybe technology throws them off, similar to like a chainsaw or a dirt bike, a motorcycle. like something doesn't click with them. Like, I don't know, almost like deer or kangaroos. Like, they know what you are naturally, but when they hear that, they're just like, it's
Yeah,
not.
but see, then again, you're giving them like the ape traits or the
Absolutely.
bipedal human traits when you also believe that there's like supernatural things attached to them. If they were so supernatural, would they get caught? Wouldn't they know about cars and everything?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they could be waiting for that moment to cross, and it's hard to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. I think they want you to see him. I don't think there's any two ways about it. I don't think these things get caught off guard. I think they're pretty, I don't know. This is my view. My view. So, I mean, everyone else is welcome to their own views, and maybe they do accidentally get caught by cars by the thousands. I mean, if they're crossing roads regularly, they know cars come by.
Absolutely. And I mean, I used to be torn in between, like, is this something spiritual, supernatural, or flesh and blood animal? And I always describe it like a teeter totter in my brain. Like, one day I'm like, oh, it's flesh and blood, and the next day it's like, nope, it's supernatural, and it's constantly going back and forth. But I've come to the conclusion that these things are flesh and blood and supernatural, or demonic, whatever you want to call them. And like, that was my conclusion after like I experienced the orbs out here, and some other strange things like them slapping the side of the house and me going out there and there's nothing, and experiencing paranormal activity and strange lights up in the sky. Like, I thought that was my own thought. Like, these things are flesh and blood and they're supernatural. And then I was listening to like what the Native Americans here in the United States thought, and they said the same thing, that it's flesh and blood and supernatural. And I was like, see, like, it's the same thing. And then, I mean, I don't know. Like I said earlier, like, just because something's flesh and blood doesn't mean it's not supernatural.
Exactly right. That's exactly how I feel too. I think we're pretty much on the same wavelength. It sounds like we've had so many similar, like, crazy parallels.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking about your
experiences.
Yeah, yours really mirror my experiences and vice versa. It's the same for you.
It's weird, like me being here in Australia, and I don't know. It's a spin out, man.
Do you think you're going to get back out in the forest and do more research, or at least just go out there with your partner and just enjoy nature? Like, are you going to go out there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like, I'm laid up now at the moment. Like, I'm sitting here, like, in a lot of pain with my sciatic pain. And, like, I've had a back operation earlier in the year. And now I've had another disc herniation on top of that, which I've had a cortisone injection in, and I still don't have full feeling in my leg. My sciatic pain's out of control, and but as soon as all that's done, I want to go straight back in the bush. I mean, I'm not going to let this stop me from doing what I love, going into the bush, going camping, going fishing. I can't wait to get back into it. But I know I'll be taking holy water with me and praying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's going to heal you, is getting back out in nature and just getting out there despite the pain. Just try to walk as much as possible and stretch out that nerve. Try to find as many like back exercises that you can, and just do the ones that don't cause excruciating pain. Just do the ones that you can manage. Don't do anything that hurts really bad.
No, I'm pretty good with that, like keeping up with the exercises and all that. It's just a flare up again at the moment that I'm dealing with. Like, I did get some relief. It's just a sort of I don't know. It's a curve. Yeah. But thanks for that, man. Yeah, I'll do my best.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you haven't already heard.
Nah, man. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But I still
But
appreciate it, yeah.
yeah, you'll find something that works. I mean, it may be something you've heard 1,000 times already, but I don't know, maybe it'll just help you realize it.
Actually, when
You
I
will
was,
get through it though.
yeah, man. Thanks for that. I appreciate it, and I know I will. I will. I mean, I'm praying on it a lot, and I don't feel like this is like it for me. You know, I've still got plenty to go, so I'm not going to give up just because of back injury. Yeah, but another thing I wanted to mention that I forgot. I keep thinking of these things, like later on after we've been talking, but at the same time, I was in the midst of my, chasing down the Yowie and trying to figure out what it was. My sister had an experience too, like where she was living. She was right on the edge of this new development. So Caloundra used to be when I was first running around in the bush in Caloundra, there was a lot of it, but it's really been built up over the years since I first was roaming around there on my pushies and that in the 80s and 90s. She's in a newer area of Caloundra where it's pushing into bushland, and she had a huge scream come out of the bush. I mean, she's in where there's workers across the road building houses and stuff too. Even they all dropped their tools and were like, what the hell was that? And this is the same time that I'm looking into it all. Like, and I said, yeah, like, because she didn't know what it was, but until we actually had a conversation, and she's like, that's the only thing it could have been. She said it was just so loud and so long, this yell, that it had to be a yowie. Couldn't be anything else. We don't have anything in Australia that makes that sort of noise, Yeah. She said it was like multi-layered, had like highs and lows in it, sort of was, multi noises all coming out at once. Really loud.
Yeah, and I bet when you heard that, you're just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I was,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the stuff happening around the house. And I mean, I brought it all on myself, but it's a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I don't know, Yowie invasion, man.
Yeah.
It almost makes me think of the movie Signs. Have you ever seen that movie with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
It's like an alien movie. Yeah, where like people are seeing these things. Like they're not seeing them all the time, but like maybe they'll just see one walk out of like a cornfield or like in the middle of the street and everyone's panicking. And that's kind of what's happening today with Bigfoot. Like people are just starting to see these things. That is a sign. I feel like it's a major sign, like something big's coming.
I think there's a lot more people game to come forward and say what they've seen too, because of people like you giving us a voice and giving us a platform to voice what we've seen. Like, whereas back in the 80s and 90s, if I told my mates I'd seen a yowie, you'd just be picked on and laughed out of town, sort of thing. But now you actually have these places and avenues and people to go to and tell your theories or your sightings or your experiences. It's not just, so a lot more is coming out, but then it could be just there is a lot more of it happening now too.
Yeah, it could be, but I feel like, I don't know, the internet, social media has just made it more available. I think people have been seeing these things for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of trying to say. I think it has made it more available. But yeah, definitely people have been seeing them a long time. Because, I mean, in Yandina, the area where I was going camping and with my mate and having these experiences. Nearby Kilcoy, there's a statue of a Yowie because there was a sighting, 2 young schoolboys back in, I don't know, it was a long while ago. I can't remember the date. You can look it up anyway, and there's a statue of a Yowie there, and there's a place called Yowie Park. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have been seen throughout history, and I mean, they've been seen since people were here because the Indigenous Australians, like, they know what they are. Have you ever had the smell either?
Like the skunk smell? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, like you guys explain it as a skunk smell, but the smell that I smelt was like burnt electrical wires, sort of, or sort of soldering, like when you're soldering, like that sort of smell mixed with like human feces and BO. But that was really strong, that electrical smell.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That's a really good description of it.
Okay. So that's the same sort of smell that you got?
Similar. I mean, more like BO and human feces, but I'm just saying, like, the description of like electrical or like soldering.
Yeah.
That's really that's a good description of it. But I think
Yeah.
people have smelled different variations.
Yeah, well, they say the females and males smell different and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. But to me, I guess it's all just demonic, so I don't know.
Yeah, could be. And I think I've experienced that with paranormal activity. The old house that I was talking about, like where it smells
Yeah.
like sulfur,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, man. Definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps up the podcast, and you did an
Yeah.
excellent job, Josh.
Oh, cheers, man. I think I did that great a job. I was sort of a bit all over the place, but thanks for having me on, Miguel. It's good to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I made a new friend today, and
Yeah,
there's
for
a lot
sure, man.
that you've experienced that I have as well, and it made me feel better just because I know that somewhere all the way across the world somebody's having the same experiences as myself and going through the same stuff.
Yeah, it's made me feel better talking to you today, actually, to be honest. No, I didn't think it was gonna. I thought I was just gonna, come on and spout a load of what people think is nonsense. But yeah, I've been put at ease a lot talking to you today, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and if you're ever
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Australia, you got a place to stay. If you ever decide
Okay.
to come over and look for the hour.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, I don't know if that opportunity is going to arise, but if it does, I'll definitely travel to Australia and maybe we can link up and hang out sometime.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, I hope that you heal soon. Keep your faith, and things will get better for sure. I know it.
Cheers. All right, mate. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too. You take care, man.
Take care. See you later.
Yeah. See you later.
Peace out.